Hello, everyone. Welcome to Outside the Studio. This is Tessa, your host, as usual. We have the honor of welcoming back on the show Mara Branscombe today, who, if y'all remember from a little over a year ago, we had her on the podcast. It was episode number 74. The title of that podcast was Rituals as Remedies, which is the title of her former book, or first book, I should say, and how to start your own practice. And so we talked a lot in that podcast about rituals as remedies, healing, starting your practice, making that practice be something that is sustainable for you, that you can stick with. And today I'm so excited to dive into Sage, Huntress, Lover, Queen, access your power and creativity through Sacred Female Archetypes. And Mara, thank you so much for continuing to do this good work and for joining us again on the show. How are you?
Great, Tessa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I love it. Anytime I see something from you, I'm like, oh, yep, gotta have that conversation. What is new in your life? I mean, obviously the birth of this book is, it's been out now for a few months. And so I'm sure you're on the circuit and doing all the podcast interviews and readings. And how has it been second time around? Has anything changed?
Yeah, well, it's been really rich, I would say. It's been a joy. It's been a little bit more, I know what to expect, or maybe I could be more easeful, more comfortable, and have those really real deep dive conversations that my vision, my prayer, my intention for doing this work is, may it serve anyone who is ready to receive the work at this time. And so my intention is always in the healing and the well-being of humanity, and that's why the books are coming forward, I feel.
Yeah. Well, it's so important. It's so relevant. I really loved, did you ever read now I'm going to forget the author, but I think it's like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's an old
I never
book.
read that.
It reminded me of this. I want to say Robert Bly, but I don't think it is Robert Bly. I'll have to look that up. I remember my dad giving it to me when I was younger. And when I say younger, I think it was probably like mid-teenage years, and I was just starting to date and have a boyfriend and figure out what this whole relationship thing was about. And his big takeaway, I think, for me, looking back, was don't lose yourself in your relationship. It's easy. I remember him giving me the metaphor of the foundation of a house is stronger when the pillars stand apart and they support the roof together. But if they get too close together, it's easier for that to topple over. The house is less stable. And so that always really stuck with me in terms of like, he always really encouraged me to stay true to who I am, understand what creativity was for me, what inspired me, and be a fiercely independent woman. And so I try to take that forward into my life. And when I look at work like yours, that is very much reminiscent of those lessons that you learned as a young teenage girl, which I think is so important in this day and age and the current landscape we find ourselves in. And before we started to hit record, we were talking about a little bit about why you wrote this book, this particular Sage, Huntress, Lover, Queen. So I was wondering if we could start there. Why this book? Why now?
Sure. And first of all, I just want to say that is such a beautiful gift that your father gave you. Those teachings, that understanding, that capacity as a father to connect with his daughter in that way is like also why I wrote the book. It's because this is it, and I have two daughters. So the reason why I wrote the book, and Tessa, I didn't actually know I was going to write this book, but I knew I was going to write something, because once I was done Ritual as Remedy, when it was complete, I missed writing. I longed for it again. So I decided to give myself a task and write 30 prayer poems for a lunar cycle from full moon to the next full moon, one a day, without editing it, and just kind of push my energy of creativity. When I was done, I realized I might have had something. I was kind of on fire. I was cooking a bit. I was letting it flow. And then I printed out those prayer poems. And what I realized, and I put them all around me in the living room floor. I just won't ever forget that moment. I was having tea and I was looking and I was said, what have I got here? What's going on here? And then I realized, oh, this is reminiscent of the archetypes, the feminine archetypes. There's the mother, there's the sage wisdom, there's the huntress, the feminine warrioress. And so that's how this book got birthed. Then I built, it became the bones of, or perhaps the marrow of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went deep in and did 2 months per archetype to live it, to breathe it, to understand it, to come up with rituals and practices for others to embody the feminine way of leadership, of love, of evolutionary leadership, which is different than what has been in patriarchal, colonial, imperial cultures and societies and paradigms. And so that then birthed the book, and it became very clear to me, even though I didn't know I was going to write that I was meant to do this work at this time.
I love that. So when you say you spent 2 months, okay, I have a lot of questions, but I want to start here. 2 months within each archetype, what did that look like? And I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of intuitive processing and creative work around it, but did you do research based on these archetypes? I'm wondering how these 4 stuck out to you specifically.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's actually 8 archetypes in the book, but the title of that is Sage, Huntress, Lover, Queen. And yes, I studied a little bit, and then I didn't want to get too swayed by other people's work. So what I did is I worked with the energy centers in the body and the archetypes. So I work a lot with the elements, as you know, from Rituals Remedy, and the chakras, the energy centers in the body. So I started to weave basically all of this together. So the maiden is the underworld. The mother is the first energy center, earth. The sage is the second energy center, water. The huntress is the third energy center, fire. So I went like that. So I had a lot of great content coming through. I and I have a lot of training in the Trinity, the triad of Maiden, Mother, Crone, because I spent all of my 20s really diving into the pagan and Celtic wheel of the year and pagan culture, witch culture, and really diving into that. So I had a very strong foundation of what those 3 energies were, and I wanted to go further. I mean, I feel like I probably could have had like 13, actually, 13 archetypes to represent the 13 moons. But these ones really stuck out as helpful tools for the collective at this time. And the book isn't just for women, it is also for those men who are curious and willing to embody a feminine approach to their intuition, to tapping into their intuition, to becoming a leader from the feminine is an inclusive, nurturing, clear, and intuitive way to be in the world.
Will you say that last part again? It's inclusive. I lost you there for a second.
Okay. Inclusive, clear, intuitive, and powerful way to live, to exist, to pour into whatever project or creation, whatever passion, be it from activism to being an artist, to being a high-powered CEO, to being a mother or a father, a sister or a brother, a partner. So the information that's in here, my intention was, may it support the evolution of our way of living compassionately on this world.
Yeah, it's so helpful. That's so needed right now. I feel like we get really hung up as a society in labels such as male, female, and when we're talking about witch or sage or huntress, or even when we're thinking about picking up a book like this, it's like, oh, if I don't identify as female, there's not going to be anything for me in it, we might think, right? And I think that's, going back to what I was saying earlier about this book that my father gave me, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. I think, I could have easily set that book aside and said, oh, that's for the masculine, and I don't orient that
Hmm.
way. But I think it's so important to, like what you're saying, remember that there's both energies are needed, masculine and feminine, and within each of us, those energies exist, however we identify, regardless of our chromosomes, those
Hmm.
energies
Hmm.
exist. And there's something to be learned for all of us, however we orient in this world. So I appreciate that
Hmm.
lens for sure.
Hmm.
What's calling to me as I was reading through this book is the energy of sage and the lessons of sage and the wisdom. You said crone, and I think of sage. I think of the wisdom that comes with the years, and getting into my 40s, thinking about how do I want to age. The term age with grace is feeling a little bit tired. It's feeling a little
Hmm.
bit like, I don't know, I guess cliche. I'm starting to think about it differently in terms of, well, what does it mean to now be heading into 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, and what do I want that to look like, and how do I embrace these next decades with curiosity, with joy, with excitement. I think I want excitement and something to look forward to. And I know you have a lot of great rituals and suggestions around embracing sage and wisdom. And I think we can do this at any age. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I hit my 40s, now I'm going to start doing that. But I wanted to
Hmm.
hear you talk a little bit more about that aspect, that archetype.
Hmm. Great. Well, it's one of my favorites because I just turned 50, in fact. And so for me, yeah, it's around honoring the sage at any cycle of one's life. That the sage is, calling upon, the sage has healing powers and healing tools and is intuitive. So each cycle of life, each decade, it becomes a rite of passage, in fact. It becomes a mindset shift of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm turning 50. My life's over. It's too late. The sage is like, no, it's never too late to begin again. And it is around getting comfortable in one's soul skin, getting comfortable in one's soul skin and being lit up by that, being inspired by that.
And how do we do that? And I know this is not a direct question for each of us, but if someone's listening to this and feeling like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Where do I start?
Mm-hmm.
What do you
You know
suggest?
what I'd love to do is actually just read the Sage's Blessing because from the book,
Yeah.
I just think that this would really hit it for someone who says, how do I do it? Because it's a daily mindset. It's not like one big thing. It,
Mhm.
it has to be a shift. And this blessing will, I believe, support that.
Mhm.
I am the sage within. I trust that my current process is the teaching I am meant to receive at this time. I honor my body as my timeless temple. I welcome my inner critic as a messenger to clear my mind of lack, confusion, and unworthiness. I let go of all things I cannot control at this time. Vulnerability and attentive listening are my way to walk hand in hand with my intuition. Like the holy rivers feeding the mother ocean, I stay fluid inside the great mystery of life.
Mm.
It goes on a bit further, but that gives you a clear energy or feeling or sense of what I'm working with here.
Mhm. Yeah, so helpful. I love that. I'm thinking too, you have two daughters. How old are they now?
9 and 12.
9 and 12. So it's such a great age. And I follow you on Instagram, so I get to see how involved they are in your life and the things that you all do together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you talk about this kind of stuff with your daughters?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, broad
Well,
question. You can take that where,
yeah.
however deep you want
I
to.
mean, yeah. Well, what I try to do is be present to them and their interests and their inspirations and what lights them up, and support them with teachings of truth, teachings of inner centric wisdom, in that meaning, just like your dad shared with you, the pillars of your house, the foundation, get to know yourself from the inside out, and they're tricky years, 9 and 12, and it's going to even get, more intense. I know that. And it is that if I can give them the gift of supporting their interests and staying positive in terms of our relationship, in being present with them, playful, creative, nature-based, and also not resist too much about, my one daughter is a horseback, she rides horses, and I didn't know anything about horses. And now all my salary goes to my daughter's horseback ride. I got to
Mm-hmm.
write more books. I got to sell more books. No, just joking. But, so I could have said, no, you're not doing that. I can't afford it. But instead I said, okay, let's make it work. Like, you're going to also work at the barn, so you can, trade for some of your lessons, but just like, following the trail of interest so that they know that they are ensouled by their mother.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I love that lesson of this is something, a theme in many of my relationships that you're speaking to, in it's instead of saying no in the face of something that might feel like, wow, how am I going to conquer that? How am I going to pay for that? How is that logistically going to work? Taking a beat, saying, okay, let's figure out creatively a solution, or it doesn't even have to be a solution, but let's figure out how we can work towards that. Let's see if it's possible. Let's think about this in a way that we don't have to just say no outright. I think that's such an important skill to learn, and to teach our young ones, and to continue to develop as adults. I think it's so easy. I'm thinking about mostly romantic relationships is where I bump into this a lot, where it's like, that sounds too hard. No, we're not going to do that. And it's just such a shutdown of something amazing. Like, I'm sure your daughter's relationship with horseback riding is just really lights her up, right?
Exactly. Well, and it could actually be the entire trajectory of her life.
Yeah.
And so who am I to not give that opportunity? And actually, Tessa, this is, when I was working with my writing coach on some of these concepts that have come through Sage, Huntress, Lover, Queen, she got really lit up in the Maiden, for example. And now the Maiden can also be at any age of life. So that's the thing I want to share with the audience, is that you don't have to read from start to finish the book. You can flip it almost like an oracle deck and receive the insight and the intel. And also, the Maiden holds the capacity for like the passion, zhuzh, the zest for life. And yeah, we can think about the Maiden being in our late teens, early 20s, running with, with our fluid dress down the beautiful sandy beach, being as free as we ever were. And yet, in her core energy is true and pure innocence. True and pure innocence. Now, when I led a yoga retreat this summer, I was completely surprised and delighted that a 96-year-old woman chose to sign up for a 5-day retreat on a remote island that you could only get there by like seaplane from where she was coming. So she arrived, and she embodied the Maiden. Because you know what she said to me? I said, why do you want to come? Why did you want to come, on this retreat? Because everyone was just blown away by her, like blown away. And she had mobility issues, and we had to work to get her places. She had had some hearing loss, and there was all sorts of things. And her children had gifted her this retreat for her 96th birthday.
Oh my God. I love
And
that.
so I said, why did you want to come? She said, I want to change my life, is what she said. I want to change my life at 96. It's never too late. That's the Maiden. Yeah, that's the Maiden.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
want to hear more about this. Is there any other detail? I want to know about this woman. How did she find you? Like, what is her
Well,
energy
she
level?
actually, this was at Hollyhock on Cortez Island. Hollyhock is a very well-known, it's called a leadership institute, and it has been around for 40 years or plus. And in fact, she was there 40 years ago, and she returned
Okay.
40 years later. And when I saw her walk out of the studio, and the studios are all like really cool, like yurt structures and all,
Mhm.
so artistically created. And we're in the middle of, the forest, and the ocean's right there. And I saw her walk out when we said goodbye because she had to catch her seaplane. Um, and the door opened, and the sunbeam drew in, and she had her cane, and she walked. And she had the hearts of all of us. And we were about 23 or something. And she had the hearts of all of us. We were all weeping because I'm sure, unless she chooses to come again, but that might have been the first and last time we met her.
Mhm. Mhm.
And she taught us a lot
Mhm.
in that time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all like beauty, because it was a bit hard for her, and so we had to work to get her play. We she was our mother. She was like the matriarch, and we showed up. The whole group showed up for her
Mhm.
without knowing she was coming,
Mhm.
and we all just lined up in a way of like, we got you. Let's do this. Let's provide an experience for you that you can receive.
Oh
That's
my
the
God.
divine feminine right there. That's the way of leading from a place of feminine heart, humanity, truth, change, changing of the mindset.
Mhm. Yeah. I think I want to ask you this question that is kind of like, how do we all continue? How do we all get there to be that 96-year-old maiden, mother,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
inspiration? How do we get there?
Mm-hmm. Well, we do our work every day. We do the soul work required. We do have a daily meditation practice or some sort of contemplative practice. It could be in nature. It's your thing. You walk in nature without your phone. So you clear your mind of stress. You clear yourself of busyness. You learn how to not take, your partner's stuff on or
Mm.
your kid's stuff on. You learn how to stay strong from the inside.
Yeah. Ugh. You're right.
And
Mm-mm.
when you and when it's the time, I would like to read you one thing.
Yeah, please go for it.
Because when you said, how do we get there and how do we do that?
Mhm.
This is from the Queen chapter. And this is titled, and I feel it's very relevant to what is happening right now in the world
Mm.
with many, many innocent lives being lost. And the title of this is We, the Divine Feminine of the Planet. Now is the time to ignite the divine feminine archetypes, the maiden, mother, sage, huntress, lover, mystic, and queen, as the stars inside the core of your soul constellation. We, the divine feminine of the planet, are here, standing in solidarity with your prayers, witnessing your mighty grace, embracing every tear, fear, doubt. Together, we hold the cries inside the holy Mother Earth. She summons our hearts to rise. It's time to move towards a higher collective consciousness of love.
Mm. That's so beautiful. Thank you for reading that. I
Thank
think
you.
it's such a helpful reminder to do the work. You said that before you read the passage, and it's important. I think it's what I find really interesting is the things that we become willing to do that work for, and the things that we kind of become unwilling to do the work for. I'll give you an example
Mm,
of what's been on my mind lately. So I shared that we
yeah.
recently got a puppy, and it's literally like having an infant, potty training and guiding, what kind of behavior you want to see, positively reinforcing that behavior. This is the way that I approach it anyways. Um, with treats and love and praise when he does something right or something that I would like to see more of. And I was on a walk today. I was walking my older dog by herself, and she's such a good dog. Oh my gosh, she's so smart. So I was walking her, and a woman stopped me. She said, "Hey, how old is your dog?" And I said, "I think she's about 5. We adopted her, so it's kind of a rough estimate." And she was like, "Gosh, I wish I could take my dog out for a walk, and he's just too crazy. He just has all of this energy." And I think if I hadn't have done the work, if I hadn't have taken the time to educate myself about how to simply take my dog for a walk, which is, yeah, simple, but for some of us, it's very challenging. Before I educated myself about how to do this, it was hard to take her for a walk by myself. She's a German Shepherd. It's a very specific breed. It's a lot of work. So I really had to put the time into this, but it was something that I wanted to do and I was committed to doing, even though it was the harder thing to do. And so I was just sharing just with this woman, I know it's hard, but it's worth it to do the work. And I just gave her some tips and tricks and she was like, gosh, thank you so much for sharing. And I feel re-inspired to try again. And I was like, yeah, I really believe that the solution isn't, you can't stop going for walks because walks are good for your health. And your dog needs to go for walks too, because they have energy to burn just like we do. So the solution can't be to just give up on yourself or your dog. And so where am I going with this? I kind of lost my train of thought, but I think it's, yeah. Okay. So it's interesting to me what we choose to really put the time and effort into. I think here's where it is. The kernel here for me is the unconscious choices that add up to a sum total of a life of doing or not doing the work. And so you're right, Mara. I do believe it's like, how do we get there to the 96-year-old amazing inspiration of a woman? It's a mindset that we show up every day, and a contemplative practice is super helpful. On that thread, well, first, if there's anything you want to add to what I just said, my little diatribe, feel free.
No, I love your story about that. I think that's it. You put the work in, and so then you were able to also share that.
Yeah, and I hope it helps. It's the idea of paying it forward. The question I wanted to ask you about, I was thinking back to our first conversation when we talked about rituals. You shared some of your daily rituals. I'm curious what they look like now, if it's changed. You're second-time author, you missed writing, you returned to it, and you birthed this beautiful book. I'm wondering what sort of daily practices, maybe they're not daily, maybe they're monthly, maybe they follow the cycle of the moon. What is going on in your life right now that builds structure for you and keeps you on the path that you want to be on?
My morning meditation is non-negotiable, so it happens every morning, and it is followed by breath work. And I love this season of, as we're entering the darker months coming. It's not that I love the darker months, but that I light a candle as my only light in the morning until the natural light, the natural sunlight comes forward. So that's very special to me. It's quite kindred. So I highly recommend that to anyone looking to regulate. We can regulate with the light of a candle and it can become very special, and it becomes an anchor to sit and do the morning meditation. Even if you have 10 minutes, that's all you need. And that in that meditation, I ask for neutrality. So it's not like I'm seeking some big spiritual experience. I'm seeking neutrality at the center of my body. And by that, I mean a place of pause, quiet, so that I can then receive what wants to come forward without a forced agenda. So I've been really playing with that. I've been playing with that energy of even in all my relationships, in my relationship to my work. I host a lot of circles. I always host a new moon and a full moon circle. I'm continuing to write on a daily basis right now. I have a project that's due, in fact, today on the Witch's New Year. So I'm really excited, and I'll share that with you when it's ready. Maybe in 1 year from now, we'll be dropping in again. I'm very excited. I've been working very hard on a new project. And so that's what lights me up. I walk my dog every day, or I run my dog. Also, I'm a runner. I picked up running again once I got my Border Collie Aussie Shepherd Cross dog, because she needs a lot of exercise, and it's a great way for me to be getting my heart rate up, sweating, moving through the mountains, and then I've recently really reconnected with a love of yoga. Not like that ever left, but I think my priority went to a little bit more of that big run every day, and now I'm just noticing that I really am desiring to get back into that movement of yoga.
Mm.
So, like that, those are my practices, and um, hmm,
Such great ones. I love that idea of the candle in the morning. I've never thought about a candle in the morning. I typically will light one at night. I'm
yeah.
curious, can I ask what time you get up in the morning?
Well, this morning I got up at 5. Not every morning, but when I have a deadline, also morning is my magic creative
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
So, and I know that about myself. So that's very helpful for me. But you know, I do also recognize how sleep is so important. So I do go to bed early, and yeah.
Mhm.
So that's a long candle burning from 5 a.m. till 7:30
Yeah.
in the late action.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I want to know what this practically looks like because I'm trying to visualize myself doing this in the
Okay,
dark.
so yes, so I have you know, because just a little bit of light. Well, my house is really windowy, so there is, you know,
Like moonlight.
natural a little
Yeah.
bit more. But I have it all set up with my meditation cushion on my low table. The tea light is ready, the matches are beside it. I stumble downstairs and I sit down. I might have my like my warm lemon water or whatever, and then like that and just sit. And then I move into, you know, whether it be coffee, I do my meditation and some breath work, which is always helpful for me because I promise myself I will not open that computer screen or the phone.
Mm.
I will not do that because it affects my meditation so much. A couple times I'm like, oh, I just really need to see if they've responded. Then the meditation gets focused on the fact that they didn't respond, or you know what I mean. You just
Mhm.
like you get really. It's natural for us to be so distracted, and so the remedy of our times is what do you do that what do you do to remedy that constant desire to be distracted?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you be alone with yourself and your thoughts and cultivate some sort of peace and ease in that? That's how we get there.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so important. I think what's been helpful to me with that in mind, that to remember that it's the screen, it actually gives us a dopamine hit.
Mhm.
Neurochemically, it is addictive, like sugar or like drugs. And so remembering that this technology is designed to hook you and to keep you scrolling or watching because it releases those feel good hormones, that connection hormone. And so, yeah, I think developing practices and learning and teaching yourself how to be okay in
Mhm.
and of yourself. How do you feed yourself without needing something external like your phone? Is such a wonderful call to action. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stumbling down in the dark and having it all set up, that's very helpful. Having it set up ahead of time, for sure.
You don't want to be stumbling and looking for the matches that have
Right.
disappeared as you woke up, you know, intentionally to do your meditation. Yeah. You want to set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. And I help clients with that is that it doesn't have to be a really long time, but let's look at consistency. Let's look at the discipline of showing up.
Mhm.
And that's the feel good. That's the dopamine hit that is really generative, is that you did it. You got yourself there. You should be proud of yourself. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Celebrating those things that even in a meditation practice, you know, oftentimes people will say, I can't meditate because I can't stop thinking, and recognizing that that is the nature of the mind. That is consciousness. It is designed to think, right? So the success in a meditation practice is when you notice you're thinking. Celebrate that.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm
Hmm.
thinking. Okay, I'm going to come back to my breath. Okay, this
Yeah,
inhale,
yeah,
this exhale.
that's
Celebrate
right.
those small wins. I want to make sure we touch on the huntress. I think of this like warrior energy.
Mhm.
When I read this when I go through this kind of work and I read about, huntress and warrior energy, I think, I mean, you ask, who is the huntress, right? The embodied huntress has the true spirit of a warrior and empowers herself and others to live the life to the fullest. Her life purpose is fueled by her devotion to be in service to her impassioned cause. I think that I wonder, I wonder if we're resistant to that kind of energy, what is blocking us? Or maybe that's not our archetype. And so it's kind of a twofold question about how do we tap into that energy of warrior huntress in the face of fear? Because it's not that the warrior or the huntress doesn't fear, it's that she does the work, I think, in the face of fear. And so I wonder what you think about that, Mara.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that. That's a really good question. Here's what I think. The huntress, the embodied huntress, can understand what is true ego, like true divine will, like a healthy divine will, and and discerning what is reactionary defending oneself because they're feel that they have to protect themselves or they have to be right all the time. So I believe that the skilled warrioress, it lives within all of us, and it's the energy that goes. It's like when the lightning strikes within you in terms of an idea, a passion, a aha moment, an intuition. The huntress is able to receive that in its fullness and then make the steps to put it into action in the world. And it doesn't have to be this big project. It could be this listening of, that's good for me. That makes me feel good. I'm going to lean into that. It's also so it's a lot about third energy center, third chakra, which is healthy ego. And what happens to a lot of our huntress and warrior energy is we burn out because we have fought so hard, and we even came into this world having to prove ourselves to our parents and to our friends and to our karmic, like our past life stuff. There's so much here, and you'll know, we all know someone who feels they always have to fight and they always have to defend, and that makes one very tired, and it makes the vision very muddled. So the work then is getting to the truth and the core of one's power and strengthening that and rerouting that reactionary defense energy, which creates burnout.
Yeah. Oh, that's such I hadn't ever really thought about it like that. I'm so glad you brought up burnout, and I feel like I can hear this collective audience going, that's exactly how I feel. I was born into this world feeling like I have to fight for my voice, my right to use it, my validity in how I feel. And, God, just like by virtue of being a woman or identifying as woman and having a monthly cycle, what do we say around our period? Oh, I'm PMSing. Oh, you're PMSing, and then it becomes this shame.
Yeah.
Which is so not helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that. I want to be mindful of your time, and I'm wondering if there is anything that you were hoping I would have asked you that I haven't asked you yet.
One thing is around the lover in this chapter. I wanted to share one thing that I think might be really helpful for folks. That I'll share that I stumbled when I came upon the lover to write the lover, and I stumbled with, well, what is this archetype all about, or what is this energy all about, and how can I share, sense of radical self-love and collective love, and love is like source, like love that was in the stars that then came down to become the microbes in the earth which created us. And so I wrote the mystic first. And the mystic then informed how I wrote The Lover. So The Lover is not about relational love. It's not about, it can be, bonus if it is. It's not first about love for your partner, how you're loved. It's about learning how to love yourself more fully and deeply, and more fully and deeply, and being curious about that constant daily way you live with yourself and how you love yourself. And then that then gets transformed into relational love, parenting love, sibling love, animal, how you raise your animals, how you all of that. So that was a real moment for me in writing the book, that I received a healing. I received a great healing writing this book.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. I think that's the takeaway for me. And there's many takeaways, but I want to leave us with that thought, or that invitation of asking yourself how you love yourself. What does that look like to you? What does it feel like to you? Is there anything you want to do today? And maybe just let it be something very small, like looking in the mirror and practicing I love you, which is hard enough to do. It can be small, but also scary. And so, yeah, I think I'd like to end with that. Is there anything you want to add to that, Mara?
It's good.
I'm excited. Today's a good day. So Sage Huntress, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up the cover of the book, Sage Huntress, Lover Queen. Access your power and creativity through Sacred Female Archetypes. Let's support Mara on this amazing journey and just continue following along with her great teachings. I'll make sure all of the links get into the show notes so you can easily find her and the book. And thank you so much, Mara.
Thank you, Tessa. Thank you.
Well, everyone, that concludes another amazing episode of Outside the Studio. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you learned something new, maybe remembered something old, maybe felt inspired to apply something to your life. You can hear my dog in the background. She's doing a little happy dance. So Daisy enjoyed it. Anyhow, I wanted to just pop in here to wrap us up to say a couple of things. Number one, I have such an amazing team that helps me put these podcasts together. Without them, I wouldn't, be able to bring these amazing conversations to you. So thank you to my producer, my director of creative services, my sound editor, my engineer, Consistency Media. Don't know what I would do without you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the amazing creation and artistic musical genius, Drew Lovern. Thank you so much for putting together this music specifically for Outside the Studio. So unique to the show, only place you're ever going to hear it is right here. Thanks, you guys. You make my world go round. Stay well, everyone. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, share on the socials, especially if it's a show that you think, hey, this could help somebody else. That's what this is all about, right? We're sharing information so that we're better, so that we're inspired, so that we're lifting each other up, and we're learning how to be in this world, living on this planet to the best of our ability, sharing information and inspiring one another. And that's my hope. That's my hope for the show. Take care.